I think we all got that one game we can always return back to because it's just that much fun. One of those games for me is Tony Hawk's Underground, my first real experience with the franchise and still also my favorite to this day. Before Underground 1, I played Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 because I bought it in one of those game pyramids once for like $5 and got to school too, which is the second level, and then quit because I hated the time limit. I was a stupid kid, and maybe I am still stupid, but at least nowadays, I also love the classic games and the way they played around the timer. A funny little thing is that the default skater model is showing up in the very first scene in the story before you get to make one, but if you go into the character creation before you start the story, you see the one you just created. I think the average person will just go straight into the story because they think they will get to make one anyways, so for 5 seconds we are someone we are not, or maybe we took over his body. Character creation is pretty fun except for the most important part, the face. They're pretty ugly, especially if you want to play as a girl, so instead I picked the best possible thing, a bunch of eyes. Don't need a pretty face if you got at least pretty eyes. Also, I always made my character 1 year old. Why does the game even allow you to go so low? Others always stop at something like 14, but here it's like, yep, you are allowed to roleplay as a baby even if you're not one. The story is basically perfect for what it is. It's your typical noob to pro story where you start at nothing and want to work your way up in the skating world to become a bigger name than Tony Hawk himself, all while staying humble. Unlike your friend Eric Sparrow, who lets the fame get to his head and tries everything to achieve it, even betraying you, his childhood friend. He's often named as one of the most evil villains in video games in a joking way, because he really just does suck, but he's an actual psychopath. Not just for stealing your tape and double crossing you, but at the beginning of the game, he just blows up a drug dealer's car. I am not saying that it's cool to deal drugs and sell it to teenagers that will probably ruin their lives, but that was a bit much, wasn't it? And throughout the game he already shows you his real personality, like not putting your name into the temper contest and only his own, so you first need to get approval from Tony Hawk to enter it. He's a total rat, and that's an insult to rats. There's that one big moment people hate him for the most, and that's stealing your glory of jumping off an actual helicopter with an MC twist, the turning point where even a naive kid would realize, damn, this guy sucks. In comparison to the next two games, it also feels way more grounded. Sure, you wouldn't do a crazy thing like jumping over an active helicopter in real life, but if you played Underground 2 and American Wasteland, you know how much more crazy those get. Here everything still feels relatable to a normal human, like me and you. I think we're humans, right? Underground 1 just nails the typical punky skater aesthetic that you think of when you think of skating. A bunch of people just having a cool time while skating around, listening to some cool tunes and trying to make it big in a dirty but still beautiful world. And maybe stealing a tank or two and get thrown into prison in Moscow. It happens sometimes. If it didn't yet, then it will eventually. To me, it feels like the culmination of all the games that came before it. The first game didn't even have manuals, but then they added it in the second one. The second one did not have the revert, boom, Pro Skaters re-added it. You see what I mean? Here you got all of it in a perfect package and even more new things that changed the series forever. Being able to get off your board. It has the energy of a game where the developers got told, hey, this could be the last game you ever worked on in the franchise, so make it count and blow it out of the park. But before we get to the good part of it, let's talk about the part most people hate about the game. Instead of only adding walking, they also added driving and people hate it. I have to be a little contrarian here. For some reason I loved these sections as a kid and still do. There's just something special about them. They break up the game in a way that makes you wonder who thought that these sections were a good addition to the game, and I love those moments in games because I like to imagine the developers themselves playing these parts and going, wow, this sucks ass. But we have to put it into the game anyways, yippee. There's one thing they have in common with me, they're extremely short too. I'm 5'2", and if you multiply 5 by 5 you get 25, and now you add plus 5 and it's 30. 30 what? 30 seconds. Now double it and you get a minute. That's it, 1 minute, that's all the time you will spend with them. They may control badly, they may feel out of place, they may make you think they suck, but I'm okay with them. probably because of the nostalgic feelings I have for them and with how short they are. Would the game be better without the cars or leaf blowers? Maybe. Would the game still be as magical without them? No. If I played this game nowadays for my very first time, I would not think like this probably and just say, hey, they suck, but hey, that's how life is. Our own memories change how we see and judge things. Or maybe you already hated them as a kid. I didn't. Maybe I was a special kid. Now, to the good part, you can walk, like in real life, unless you're not the type of person that likes to go outside like me. In Underground 1, it still feels a bit clunky though. It just doesn't really feel totally right to run around. The word I would use to describe it is blocky, as if you're on a grid that's not totally gritty. It just misses some smoothness to it. Even then, it gives the game so much more flavor. You can climb, you can jump, and obviously jump right onto your board to start a cool line whip, or prolong it when there's nothing to grind on, or you know your next manual is gonna make you fall right onto your face. Just get off your board and run to the next grindable object, which hopefully isn't a goat. It's just that last ingredient that the games really needed. Just because you can walk and jump does not mean the levels were built around that. You can basically still reach everything by being on your skateboard, but sometimes it does help when you can get off your board and go exploring to find good spots to start your line with without being forced to stay on the board. In the other games sometimes you wanted to get onto a higher place but failed to jump and then you would have to try again and again, while here just get off your board and jump onto it. It makes it easier to be able to plan them when you can just go around on your little feet without having to move, because when you're on the board you have to move unless you stop totally, but that's you can't really explore like that, can you? One thing that is a bit sad is that it mostly stays in America, with the exception of Moscow and Australia, the secret level that you don't play in the campaign though. It does take you to Canada, but for me that's basically America anyways. I don't know if this would offend a Canadian more than it does to an American. Despite that, it offers a fairly well balanced variety here. Hawaii is obviously a different scenery than the streets of Tampa. It is pretty urban though, without anything too crazy. Pro Skater 3 had the cruise ship and 4 had the carnival or the zoo for example, which are the kind of levels I am missing a bit. Evening Secret level is basically just an advertisement for Kiss with a little console of them when you collect all the letters. It also lets you drive a little buggy around the desert part of the map and you can do a big jump. I love big jumps. The other levels themselves though fun as hell to skate around in. Big and perfect for skating all around them with the right size. Everything feels measured to make you have the most fun you could have. The levels are not cluttered at all. There's always enough room to see what's going on, for a few exceptions where the camera goes crazy, mostly after falling down. Something that I felt Underground 2 did worse, where it feels they wanted to put too much stuff into levels like Barcelona. Too much to do on too little room. But here it just fits. Alleyways are big enough not to constantly bonk against walls, and it never feels that needless objects standing around that you can't use to your advantage. With Vancouver, it also has my favorite contest level in the franchise. It's like grind heaven, where you can just endlessly grind around before cutting into the actual level and do some other sick tricks. All levels have that kind of line that brings you from its starting point to the ending point with multiple ways through it. In New Jersey it feels like Dust 2 from Counter-Strike with A, mid and B. There's just always something to grind on, like a dog who wants to hump things. Halfpipes that shoot you up onto a higher layer of the level that shows off its verticalness in its world design too. There's always little surprises onto where you can actually go to, like the train station or also the bank or the strip club. Every piece of space is so well used, like your skateboard that you used for years. Unlike mine, I only tried to skate for 1-2 months because I started learning it together with a friend and then he stopped, and doing it by myself was not that much fun, so I stopped too. And they do feel like real places with cars and other people and skaters around. The challenges are also fun most of the time. There's some simple ones like having to do specific tricks, grind in a circle to make the security guard dizzy, or just getting enough points. Then there's more funny ones that can barely be called a challenge, like grinding on the car of a guy who's cheating on his wife and doing the laundry afterwards. It has a good mix between normal skating action, quirky and funny challenges, or stuff where you have to drive a car. Moscow has one of the best ones in the game, but also some of the worst ones. Like having to do 20 spine transfers over satellite. It's just boring. Why do I have to do it 20 times? Why not make me do it 5 times maybe, while having to score enough points? It would give it more of a challenge too. Don't even get me started on the tiny stealth mission either. When you know the right path, it's super short, but I remember getting stuck here as a kid. Again, I wasn't the smartest one. Nowadays it's done in 20 seconds, but I still hate it. Also, the game is really no joke on sick. There have been some challenges that made me question my life, especially when I had to choose between this grinding one where I have to smash all the bottles or the wall plan into manual one that wants you to keep a manual for like 20 seconds till you go through all the counts. I would have totally ignored this one if the grind bottle one wasn't so buggy. You have to smash all bottles in one combo. Sounds simple enough, but every time I did it I failed. Why? I didn't know. So I looked for a video of it and in it I saw you had to acid drop at one point, but why? Why can I manual or just grab my board and smash the last 3 bottles normally? Then I saw another video where the person did what I did and it worked for them. They played the PC version though, so maybe this is only a bit buggy in the PlayStation 2 version. In general, when I had my normal playthrough a couple of days before my sick playthrough when I was streaming, it felt too easy. Maybe that's because I played through the game so often already, but the jump between normal to sick feels a bit too much at times. And even then, sick is very varied with how hard it can be. There's a line mission in the last part of the game where you have to collect these green fists and it can be pretty tricky. Took me around half an hour to beat it. Then right after you get a challenge where you just have to do all these tricks and I survive with so much time on the clock. I guess maybe they just wanted you to be able to take a deep breath again with an easy one after such a hard one, but it kinda felt weird. An important thing that will help you is getting your stat points up by doing specific things, and on the normal difficulty I never had to grind them. You can easily pick up enough of them by just playing the game, but on sick I wanted to grind up my grind points to do a long grind mission in Moscow, the one where you gotta mix things to make the guy less hungover, and you need to grind for 20 seconds. How? I tried and just couldn't do it. In short, I just suck, I guess. Especially when you then look up playthroughs of people playing it on sick with a 0 stat challenge. You will feel inferior. It felt great though to finally beat some of these missions after trying for a long time. That's what the game is missing on normal. It feels you can just breeze through it and that's a good thing for most. But for that sweet dopamine hit, it feels best to play it on sick, even if it gets frustrating. Obviously I would not recommend that one for a beginner. The normal would be fine. I don't normally tell people what to do though, but don't play it on beginner or even too easy. There would be no fun in it. And I don't mean this in a gatekeepy way, like you're not even a true fan if you don't play them a certain way. I'm looking out for you here. Some games do get worse if the difficulty is just too easy. And luckily, most of the time you don't even have to do all of the missions. You can just choose which one you want to do or don't want to do, except when there's only 1 or 2 to pick from. If you want to unlock the cheats though, then you better get all the golds to unlock them for things like Moon Gravity, or you can just get the cheats through an actual cheat code so you don't have to do all of that. Find the secret tapes, get the old school levels, find all gaps, there's so much to do, or even build your own park. When I was younger I loved to just build my own park and you can make them really big, something I always wanted to be. None of my friends ever played the Tony Hawk's games though, so I could never show them off. Also, the developers created some pre-made ones that are pretty cool. Some of them, some less, some more, extra levels, that's all I can say. Yay! Can't talk about a Tony Hawk's game without the soundtrack, and just like always, it's full of bangers for everyone. The perfect mix between rock, punk, hip-hop, some metal. It probably also helped me mold my music taste a little bit. During that time I was just listening to whatever played on Viva or MTV, and it was hard to actually find music you want to listen to since YouTube or Spotify didn't really exist yet, so where would I even look for music on the internet? Obviously there have been places to find music, but as a kid I just wanted to play Neopets instead. My favorite song from the game must be New Noise from Refuse though. It just burns itself into your mind when you hear it during the helicopter stunt. Even had to buy the whole album eventually. A little personal story I have with the game is that I still perfectly remember the day I got it, because the new Media Markt, a huge electronics store here in Germany, opened up and they had great deals, since I guess that's how it works for the grand opening. For whatever reason my parents took me with them and it was like 6 AM on a weekday despite having school. So we went there and I have no idea what my parents even wanted to buy anymore, but I was allowed to pick a game and I picked this one, and the rest was history. When we got home I even got enough time to still play it for a bit before having to go to school, and the whole day I just wanted to get back home to play it more. An almost perfect game for me as a kid and still an almost perfect game for me as an adult. If you look up the meaning of the phrase timeless classic, this is what you would find as an example. It's one of my comfort games that I can always just play through when I don't know what else to play and I'm in the mood for it. Or maybe just skate around trying to get a nice combo. Maybe one day it will get that well-deserved remaster or remake even if it doesn't need it, unless you don't like to emulate. There's also Fuck Pro nowadays. With that said, I hope you enjoyed the video and will have a good day, a good night or whatever fits your time zone, and I would say I'm now gonna go replay it, but I already replayed it twice in like 2 weeks, so I think I will have to wait for that a bit again. It's something I replay yearly though. Maybe you should do the same. Bye bye.